NHL free agent frenzy is well underway. We have a ton of NHL signings to talk about today, including some big ones like Dougie Hamilton. We've got Zach Hyman confirmed, Tyson Barrie, Cody Ceci, Freddie Andersen, Petr Mrazek, Blake Coleman, and a whole bunch more. All that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a ton of breaking news when it comes to NHL signings. NHL free agent frenzy is well underway. Obviously, a lot of these players, we're talking NHL teams well ahead of when they were supposed to, because a lot of deals were announced within the first even 20-30 minutes, even beforehand, before NHL free agent frenzy was officially underway. So we're going to go through this here. I don't really have a particular order per se, but they're certainly going to go through this by team and going to go through a lot of the signings that are already confirmed. The biggest one of the day so far is Dougie Hamilton is indeed heading to the New Jersey Devils. He gets himself a 7-year deal. We are waiting for the exact confirmation of money, but it's believed to be north of $60 million per season. So it's going to be a massive payday. The Hurricanes really didn't come close. It looks as though they came up around, I think it was around 6 or a little bit more than $6 million per year. But obviously that is well under what he's going to be getting paid to join the New Jersey Devils. The New Jersey Devils have been doing a lot of other good moves here, including signing goaltender Jonathan Bernier. He will be a great mentor in a 1B selection here for working with Mackenzie Blackwood. He gets a 2-year deal worth $4 million per season. He's been actually very, very good in Detroit. A lot of his numbers are impacted by the fact that the team in front of him has been losing a lot of hockey games. But you can certainly make an argument that many of the wins they got was largely due to his solid goaltending. Of course, they already had Thomas Greiss under contract for a while. Bernier was coming up as a free agent. And as much as I think there was some interest for Detroit to retain him, he knew that there was going to be more opportunity to get probably a little more money, as well as maybe have a more of a chance to win and to try to chase something here. Obviously, New Jersey's not exactly all that far ahead of Detroit when it comes to the standings, but with the young core of players, I think it's further to say that their rebuild is certainly further along. I don't know really how negotiations or contract talks went with the Red Wings, but certainly gets him a new team here, and like I said, a very underrated goaltender in the last number of years. Now, looking at some of the Canadian teams here, the Montreal Canadiens are welcoming a trio of new players to the team, including David Savard, who had been rumored by Elliot Friedman to be joining the Habs. Of course, they just played against Savard in the Stanley Cup Final, who's now a Stanley Cup champion with the Tampa Bay Lightning. David Savard joins the Montreal Canadiens on a 4-year deal at $3.5 million per season. So, I mean, that's a pretty solid deal. Obviously, with Shea Weber being out, Savard can play a lot of those top right side minutes. So that's a pretty solid signing there by Montreal to replace him. Obviously, not going to be the exact same kind of guy. You can't replace Shea Weber completely, but at least Savard's got a lot of experience, can bring a Stanley Cup to the room, and obviously a great experience there. And obviously, he's from Quebec as well, so it's a bit of a homecoming here for him. They also welcome in Chris Weidman, former Ottawa Senator, former player and defenseman of the year in the KHL last year. Weidman, of course, ended up going to the KHL after running out of NHL opportunities, but has certainly kind of redone his game here. Gets a real easy, short-term, low-risk deal. Could be a great find for Montreal. He gets 1 year, $750. But you know what? He's still a good skater, good puck mover, a little bit undersized, but he is quick and mobile and can certainly provide them with some extra depth on D. So I do like this signing here for the Habs. I mean, they have a lot of big, strong, physical defensemen, and they have another guy here who can help them move the puck and be a little bit more of an offensive guy, maybe run some power plays when the opportunity presents itself here as well. And they also bring in veteran forward Cedric Paquette. Paquette gets a 1-year deal at $950,000. Of course, he can be a decent bottom six player. Paquette can be decent on faceoffs, play the PK, just be a good role player for your bottom six. Of course, it looks as though the Montreal Canadiens are very likely to be losing Philip Deneau. So not to say that Paquette can replace him. He can't do that, but at least he can give you some of the things. They're going to have to work as a committee to do what Phil Deneau did for them for a long time, barring some other, massive other addition that we're not aware of here as of yet. Now, jumping over to another Canadian team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Nothing too earth-shattering out of Toronto yet, but they have signed young speedster Michael Bunting, who formerly played in Arizona. Of course, like I said before in a prior video, connected to Dubas Inkeef through his time in the Ontario Hockey League. I think it's a 2-year deal at $950,000. Could be a great find for them. Somebody who can play a middle six, bottom six, but provide some speed and some goals. Secondary scoring will be huge for them. Good value, cheap contract, has limited NHL exposure, but what he did show last year year, looked pretty good. Also had a chance to play for Canada at the World Championships and looked really good there too. So that could be a great find for them. They're also believe, I don't have the full details, to be bringing in Michael Amadio, formerly of the LA Kings and the Ottawa Senators, but that's likely going to be a two-way deal if it is confirmed. And Josh Hosang was another player that they were talking to as another depth piece, but it's believed that Hosang, he'll either end up getting a two-way deal or he may end up having to go to camp on a PTO to kind of prove that he deserves a contract. So we'll see about that. But they also found their solution in goal to work with Jack Campbell. They bring in former Carolina Hurricane and Detroit Red Wing goaltender Petr Mrazek on a 3-year contract at $3.5 million. Another guy that I'm really shaking my head why Carolina couldn't sign for that kind of money. They ended up spending more money to get former relief goaltender Freddie Andersen, which we'll talk about here momentarily. But Mrazek, I think, will be a good fit for Toronto. Him and Campbell should be a pretty good tandem, 1A, 1B. Obviously, it's hard to say how they'll split up the games, or if there will be a clear-cut starter, or if they'll split things evenly, or what have you. But Mrazek's a very capable goaltender. Missed a decent amount of time last year due to injury, but we'll be interested to see how things work out for them. But at least they got themselves a good goaltending tandem for the right price. Will it be enough to go far in the playoffs, win past the first round? Only time will tell. But a decent addition there by the Leafs. Nothing too flashy, but it gets the job done. The Edmonton Oilers have made several signings today as well, including making the Zach Hyman deal finally official. He gets $5.5 million on a 7-year contract. That's a lot of money for Hyman. He also gets some signing bonuses in there, and there's a full no-move clause for the first 5 years of the contract. I really think the Oilers definitely had to overpay here. I love Zach Hyman, don't get me wrong, but that's a lot of money, a lot of term. I think in a lot of ways he earned his money, but he earned that based on what he did before. And you see these contracts happen all the time in free agency. Players getting paid for what they've done in the past, not so much what they're going to do in the future. I mean, he's 29. This contract should be fine for at least the first half of it. The last few years could be problematic. It really boils down to if he stays healthy and stays productive, because ultimately I have no doubt Zach Hyman, if able to, will continue to be a really hard-working player, play in the top 6. He's been really blessed to play with Matthews and now McDavid. It will be a big help for Leon and Connor to play that physical style and work hard in the corners and help create some more space for them out there. So I have no doubt in the early days of this contract, it will be fine. But longer term, I do have my concerns over how the contract might age. But I don't think they care about that. They want to win sooner than later to keep their big boys happy, to bring some more success to Edmonton. Holland knows that likely in 6-7 years, he's probably not going to be the GM anyway. So the next guy taking over can deal with that down the road. But Hyman officially off to the Edmonton Oilers here. They also bring in Cody Ceci, who signs from the Pittsburgh Penguins. He's bounced around, another former Leaf as well, former Senator. Ceci gets 4-year deal at $3.25 million per year. Ultimately replaces Ethan Bear, who was traded to the Hurricanes. That Bear trade essentially happened because of this signing. So, a little confusing on that. I don't mind Ceci. I think he's evolved to be a better defenseman the last year or two than he was in Ottawa or even the early time in Toronto. But, at the end of the day, I'm not convinced he's better than Ethan Bear. So I don't know what we can really say the Oilers' blue line gets better by that kind of move. But like I said, Ceci's kind of evolved his game here and has been a bit better lately, so we'll see. And they also found a way to bring back Tyson Barrie as well, who gets a 3-year contract extension at $4.5 million per season. So obviously he proved last year that he was a big part of that offense, could run the power play, was right up there at the top of the NHL when it comes to points by defensemen. So certainly good for them to keep Barrie. Obviously some turnover there in Edmonton when it comes to their blue line. Some younger D like Jones and Bear are now out. CC and Barrie are in. Of course, Duncan Keith had already come over from Chicago. So the Oilers have been busy. They're still looking for a third line center. We'll see what they end up doing in that regard here, hopefully later today or sometime soon. The Vancouver Canucks have had a bunch of moves here as well, including finding the replacement for Braden Holtby. They signed Jaro Halak to a 1-year contract at $1.5 million. There's a lot of bonuses built into this contract as well, which could add up to another $1.5 million, which could impact their cap the year after. So we'll have to see how that works out. It could be a bit of a hindrance in the following year's salary cap, but Halak could be a good goaltending tandem here with Thatcher Demko. I mean, if he can still play at a decent level like he showed in the last number of years in Boston, it could be a good pickup here for Vancouver, but obviously Demko will play the bulk of the games here in this scenario. They also bring back Travis Hamonic as well on a 2-year contract. He gets $3 million per year. He showed last year he could be a good partner for Quinn Hughes at times. A good steady defender back there. You're not going to get anything offensive really out of Hamonic a whole lot, but at the end of the day, kind of stabilize things back there a little bit. They also brought back Brandon Sutter, who will likely drop down in a lineup and play more of a fourth line role. He gets a 1-year deal at $1.1 million. I don't mind that signing out of all the vets that they had. Obviously, they cleared out a bunch of them here via trade recently, but I don't mind Sutter on a short-term, cheaper contract to play a smaller role than he was expected to do in the past. They also brought in Brady Keeper, formerly of the Florida Panthers. Brady Keeper gets a 2-year deal. It's believed to be a one-way deal as well, and valued at $762,000. That's a nice value signing. He's a good defenseman. Will get more of an opportunity. Hard to say exactly where he slots in their lineup because they do have a lot of defensemen. He'll probably end up being a 7-8 player, but an extra depth guy here. Of course, he's from Manitoba as well. Keeper's another guy like Ethan Bear representing the Indigenous community in the NHL and doing a great job here. He's a real young, promising defenseman. Hopefully, he gets a good chance to play there in Vancouver. And the other contract the Canucks did today is they signed Tucker Poolman, formerly of the Winnipeg Jets, on a 4-year deal at $2.5 million. Out of all the deals, this one I think might be a little bit much, a little rich in my opinion. Poolman, it's a decent defenseman, but to get 4 years at 2.5, I don't know. I don't mind the money so much. It's just the 4-year term is a little much in my opinion for a guy who isn't as established enough to see guys like Barry and CC etc. getting 3-4 year deals, and then Poolman gets one as well. A little bit confusing, but you know what? We'll see how it works out. Poolman has potential. We'll see how he fits here in the Canucks lineup. The Carolina Hurricanes have changed things up here and obviously have a whole different goaltending tandem than they had a few days ago. They traded Nedeljkovic. We saw all their goalies leave via free agency. And now they have Freddie Andersen and Antti Raanta, the two guys they signed here as UFA goaltenders. Let's get 2-year contracts where Freddie Andersen gets $4.5 million and Antti Raanta gets $2 million. This is not really a shock. They've really been linked to both of these guys off and on for the past while and the last number of weeks heading into this free agent period. Both of those goalies were heavily linked to the Hurricanes, so not a big surprise. I'm not really convinced they have a better goaltending tandem than they had before. They traded Nedeljkovic as well as let Mrazek go in free agency. To me, they could have had the same goaltending tandem, which to me was pretty good for the same kind of price tag that we're talking about here. I mean, look at what Nedeljkovic signed for in Detroit. You look at what Mrazek signed for in Toronto, and there's pretty much no difference in money here, except they get two goaltenders. Both of them are a little bit older and have had a lot of injuries as of late. I don't know. To me, this is a risky move by Carolina, and I don't completely really understand where they're going. I mean, they're both good goaltenders, don't get me wrong, but it's not really looking at it as an upgrade over what they had before. One of the bigger signings today as well was Blake Coleman going to the Calgary Flames. They paid a 6-year contract of $4.9 million. I do love Blake Coleman, but I have concerns over this deal as well. I mean, we see a lot of times players get paid big time money for, being on successful teams. Coleman's a great player, was a big part of their cup winning team, but it's just shy of $5 million in 6 years. I really hope it works out. Has a lot of potential. I mean, when he was with the Devils, he was playing more of a top 6 role. Maybe we'll see if he gets that opportunity in Calgary and can put up more offense to really kind of justify this payment here a little bit more. But at the end of the day, it's a great signing by Calgary in the sense that I really like the player. Hardworking guy, can kill penalties, had some offensive upside too. I really like the fit for the Flames. It's a little bit rich, but that's to be expected when there's a tough market out there. He's coming off back-to-back Stanley Cup championships in Tampa. Certainly showed how valuable he was, and this was bound to happen here. We knew he was probably going to get a 5 or 6 year deal, and I don't think I'd have issue with the term so much if the dollar amount was a little bit lower. Considering the options he had, I'm a little bit shocked and surprised, actually, to be honest, that he ended up here with the Calgary Flames. To go back to Carolina for a moment as well, they did re-sign Jordan Martinook as well, a 3-year deal at $1.8 million. That's another good signing. Good bottom 6 forward, great leader, good in the locker room, real kind of a glue guy on that team. So it's nice to see them keep Martinook here in the picture in Carolina. It's probably the smartest thing they've done here in the past couple of weeks. The Carolina Hurricanes are also reported to be signing Tony DeAngelo on a 1-year, $1 million contract as well. Obviously, we also saw them trade for Ethan Bear, trading Warren Fogle from the Oilers. That, to me, was a good deal as well on the Hurricanes side of things, though. Given DeAngelo's past and given what Ethan Bear's had to endure recently with racism and stuff, I really hope we don't see anything in that regard. I want to give DeAngelo the benefit of the doubt here that he'll get his, that there won't be any issues related to that, but he does have history in that regard. So hopefully that the Carolina Hurricanes are well aware of what they're doing here and can make sure that there's no other issues in that locker room with Tony D causing any more problems anywhere. The Lightning have made a couple of really good, valuable signings. They signed goaltender Brian Elliott and defenseman Zach Bogosian. Bogosian goes back to the Lightning after a year in Toronto. Of course, he was first part of their first Cup championship 2 years ago. Obviously had a good time in Toronto, but was not keen on the COVID border restrictions. Made it clear he was going to go back and play in the U.S. And he's a prime example of wanting to play for championships more than play for money. He probably could have ended up getting a little bit more money elsewhere, but he gets a 3-year contract now, a little bit more stability to stay here with the Lightning. $850,000. Now, of course, because of the state tax issues there, obviously, because of the difference in state tax, he'll get to keep more of that money, but still, that's a great signing in Tampa for somebody who can play a third pair of defense. Obviously, he's got himself, well back on track after leaving the Sabres organization a couple of years ago. And Brian Elliott signs a 1-year deal to back up Andrei Vasilevsky. 1-year deal at $900,000. You can't beat that either. Good, valuable signing. There's obviously Curtis McElhinney will not be returning to the Lightning organization after they made that deal. Alec Martinez returns to the Vegas Golden Knights. He gets a 3-year deal at $5.25 million. Of course, he was a big part of their success. I know they were pushing hard to keep him. It will hurt their cap situation a little bit, but he's certainly worth that money and more to me. I mean, he would have gotten easily that or a little bit better on the open market. Defensemen are getting paid very, very well today during free agent frenzy, but obviously, again, because of the difference in state tax and the fact that he wants to be on a winning team, has a chance to be, a cup contender each and every year, it's obviously a lot of value to remain with the Golden Knights. Been a great fit there ever since they picked him up from the LA Kings. They also signed former Canucks Sven Baertschi on a 1-year, 2-way deal at $750,000 as well. The Seattle Kraken have signed former Florida Panther and Columbus Blue Jackets center Alex Wennberg. Of course, he was bought out by the Jackets, went down to Florida with former GM Bill Zito, of course, who he was quite familiar with from his days in Columbus, gave him a 1-year deal, and he had a really solid year last year, but this, to me, the Kraken might be overpaying after that one solid year in his return. He gets a 3-year contract at $4.5 million. That's a lot of dinero for a guy who's really a one good year after several down years in Columbus. So hopefully it works out for Seattle, but one area of weakness after the expansion job was definitely the center position, and they do address that and get a decent center, but we'll see where he slots in the lineup, and hopefully that contract doesn't turn out too bad for them here. Columbus Blue Jackets have extended center iceman Boone Jenner on a 4-year deal valued at $15 million, so he'll be one of the consistencies here. Obviously, they've really cleared out a lot in Columbus, but he'll be remaining here with the club. And they also signed hometown boy Sean Corrali, formerly of the Boston Bruins, who gets a 4-year contract at $2.5 million as well. Another good, hardworking, solid bottom six guy who could probably fit the Columbus mold and be a good player for them here for a while. The Red Wings have bringing back Sam Gagner on a 1-year deal, $850,000. That's an easy, no-risk contract here as well. Gagner's been a good pro for them. Good, mentor for the younger guys as they go through this rebuild. He gets to extend his career and, like I said, be a good veteran guy for those young kids to learn from. So that's another easy, low-risk contract here by Yzerman and the Red Wings. Philadelphia Flyers have made a trio of signings. Of course, we already heard about Keith Yandel likely going to the Flyers. That's now official. He gets a 1-year deal at $900,000. Of course, like I said before, familiar with Coach Alain Vigneault from his time with the Rangers. One of his best friends is Kevin Hayes. So it worked out to be a good deal there. There was rumor that the Bruins were trying to get Yandel, but obviously makes a lot of sense for him to land with the Flyers here as well. So that's a pretty low risk signing. The Flyers blue line is going to be completely revamped. He'll be able to play a lower role, continue his Iron Man streak, and of course be a good member to help them on the power play here as well. So Yandel should be a good fit there. They're also bringing in goaltender Martin Jones to back up Carter Hart next year. Obviously Elliott went to the Tampa Bay Lightning, so that creates a hole, and then Martin Jones comes in on a 1-year, $2 million contract to see if he can get himself back on track. Jones has been, one thing about Jones you can say, he's been consistent, but consistent in a not a good way. So I really hope Carter Hart can get himself back on track, because this Flyers team could be a lot better next year. But if they can't get the goaltending, that's going to be a major problem, and they still might not get any further ahead in the standings. So I hope Jones works out for them here. And they've also signed center Nate Thompson on a veteran one-year contract here as well at $800,000. The Predators are keeping forward Mikael Granlund on a 4-year, $5 million per year contract as well. Of course, he had a good year last year after re-signing for 1 year. The Predators are another team making a lot of changes. I wasn't sure if he would be remaining with the organization or not, but obviously this is a thing. This could be a sign of things to come. I'm sure they're going to try to extend Philip Forsberg as well. I know David Poile said they didn't want to rebuild, so we'll be interested to see just how this turns out. But Granlund's been a pretty consistent player for them. Should be a decent fit. $5 million might be a little bit much, though, in my opinion, but time will tell if I'm correct on that one or not. Bruins finally found another defenseman to add to their blue line, which they've been rumored to be doing here for a while. They get Derek Forbort, formerly of the Winnipeg Jets, on a 3-year deal at $3 million per season. Of course, they were rumored to be in on Yandel. They were rumored to be in on other guys as well, like Ryan Suter, and neither of them end up going. They get Forbort instead. Maybe not quite the same name power, but still a pretty decent, steady guy back there who should fit the Bruins mold and be a decent addition here to their blue line. The Minnesota Wild signed Alex Goligoski, formerly of the Coyotes, to a 1-year, $5 million contract. That's a pretty expensive contract, in my opinion, for Goligoski. Thankfully, they didn't give him too much term. I have to wonder what that means for Ian Cole. I would think that maybe he won't be returning now to Minnesota, but we'll have to see on that. Obviously, their blue line is going to be looking a little bit different here as well after buying out Suter and losing Soucy in the expansion draft. So there could still be room possibly for Cole, but they might be a little bit tighter on dollars to see what he's expected for a contract as well. New York Rangers add some grit and muscle on the back end, adding Jared Tenorti and Patrick Nemeth here from free agency. Tenorti gets a 2-year deal at $900,000. Of course, he brings a lot of size, physicality, not afraid to drop the gloves and fight. I thought he might end up staying with the Bruins after they picked him up last year. It was a decent fit there, but he'll be a good fit with the Rangers as well, who are trying to change their identity, being a tougher team to play against. Patrick Nemeth gets a 3-year contract at $2.5 million. Last played for the Colorado Avalanche. That's a decent contract for somebody who can play third pair minutes for the Rangers. Of course, the Rangers have a lot of other younger D as well, so it's interesting to see how these guys will fit into the lineup. They may not necessarily play every single game. I would suspect they won't, but there'll be some good added depth here for the Rangers, so they have some options on the back end depending on who their opponents are. The Florida Panthers are retaining Brandon Montour as well. They've made a lot of other good moves here, but Montour I thought might end up leaving via free agency, but he gets a 3-year contract at $3.5 million per year. The Florida Panthers, to me, are going to possibly be one of the top teams in the league again next year. They really have made a lot of solid moves here. They still have to sign Sam Reinhart as I record this video. That contract's not done as of yet, but keeping Montour, that blue line with a healthy Aaron Ekblad, should be pretty solid. They've moved on from Yandel. They've moved on from Strawman. They really get a nice looking blue line, and are going to be a lot different than they were last year for sure. So if anything, this team's going to get even better as the time goes on. The Penguins are keeping forward Evan Rodriguez on a 1-year, $1 million contract as well. Pretty low-risk signing in that regard. And the LA Kings are keeping Andreas Athanasiou. He gets a 1-year contract with a bit of a raise, going to $2.7 million. Vegas Golden Knights, after trading Marc-Andre Fleury, have found the new backup for Robin Lehner, and that's former Jets goaltender Laurent Brossoit. He gets a 2-year contract, valued at $2.3 million. So obviously, we saw the Jets sign Eric Comrie just the other day, so he likely will finally become a regular on the Jets lineup. Shouldn't have to go through waivers again this year. After Brossoit leaving, I would assume Comrie will be the full-time backup, but Brossoit's been a pretty steady guy behind Hellebuck there in Winnipeg. Decent pickup here for Vegas behind Robin Lehner, who likely will play the bulk of the games next season. The San Jose Sharks have signed goaltender James Reimer, who will essentially be the replacement for Martin Jones. He'll work in tandem here with Aiden Hill. He gets a 2-year contract at $2.25 million, so we'll see how the new Sharks goalie tandem works out next year. A lot of their issues in the last few years have been that they have not been able to get a big save when they need it most, so we'll see if an upgrade in goal will be any better. Reimer certainly has been around the league a long time, had his moments when he's been inconsistent, but he's had his moments when he's been good. I would imagine that Aiden Hill will get a chance to be the starting goaltender here, and Reimer will likely be more of a backup, but we'll see how things work out with that shakeup. They're also rumored to be signing center Nick Bonino. I do not have the full terms of the contract as of right now, and they've also signed forward Andrew Cogliano on a 1-year, $1 million contract here as well to play a bottom 6 role with the San Jose Sharks. All the signings I have for right now. I'm sure as I've been recording this video, video, there's probably a ton more. So if a player you've heard of signing has not been mentioned in this video, stay tuned. There's likely going to be more as the day goes along. That's just the first batch of signings here that have happened earlier in the day. There's been a lot. There's a lot to keep up with here right now. So certainly stay tuned. We'll try to cover everything here as it happens. It's been an absolutely crazy news cycle. So stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe to Top Shelf Hockey. We'll keep you up to date with all the goings on for Free Agent Frenzy here and beyond. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.